Insanity in the world of Magic the Gathering continues as Wizards of the Coast's revenue is down 16%. On top of that, Mark Rosewater just said that 75% of Magic players don't know what Planeswalkers are.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The Magic Historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends. I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for another installment of Mega Magic News, and the news is crazy. Magic has gone from Boomtown to Doomtown. Things are not looking good overall in the financial aspects for Wizards of the Coast, right? The newest financial reports have come out and they are putting Wizards of the Coast revenues down by 16%. Now, I want you to understand something. Wizards of the Coast makes their money off of two things: Magic the Gathering and D&D. So they've got to get all their cash from those two sources, essentially. Now, they are in the business of milking Magic players. Let's be clear about that. D&D, yeah, there's some opportunity to make money there, right? You keep doing reissues of the different books, new editions, new adventures and everything, but let's be very, very upfront about this. Dungeons and Dragons could never make the money that Magic the Gathering does unless they sold individual D&D book pages in randomized packages, right? Magic is the golden ticket, and we will get into that. Hasbro is actually pushing that forward as well. Hasbro is leaning heavily on Magic the Gathering right now. On the upside, let's be very clear about something. Magic the Gathering is now a billion-dollar brand, so it is pulling in a crazy amount of money, and the last number of years have been banger. So it's not like the coffers are dry, but you have to understand underlying what's going on. We're living in a world where we are getting breakneck paces for releases, on top of Wizards of the Coast not being able to get their products out on time. So we saw the stagger effect just recently with Infinity and Warhammer, where you have all of these products coming out and people just can't keep up. But imagine if they had come out at the pace that Wizard intended, and you actually did get the Infinity and the other ones releasing earlier in the year. Would it really make that much of a difference? Yes, there would be a little bit more room for people to space out their purchasing, but I don't think it would stop the feeling of us hurtling forwards. So Wizards of the Coast is releasing more products than ever, because remember, we're getting a slew of secret layers and side things going on as well. It feels like everything has a secret layer stapled onto it, and we're seeing a whole new range of secret layers with stuff like Post Malone, Assassin's Creed. We're going far and wide with the universes beyond. So you have a situation where Wizards of the Coast has been given a mandate by Hasbro saying you have to get your profits way up, because Hasbro needs to get monies for the shareholders, and they get their monies from Wizards of the Coast mostly right now. That's what it looks like when you look at the financial reports. Magic the Gathering is at the top of everything they're talking about, so the money's got to keep flowing upwards from Wizards of the Coast, which means they have to find more ways to get more money from us. They have to top the record earnings that they already did to meet the 50% increase that Hasbro has demanded. So we're living in a world right now where we have this crazy amount of products coming in, and that's not enough to just basically keep pace with the success that they already had, right? You have a situation where just to meet that level of success, they have to do better than they already are now with shoving all these products out. So where does that leave us? Well, Hasbro is turning around and actually touting Magic's 30th anniversary product as something that's going to shore up their losses. Think about that for a second. The 30th anniversary product feels like a hastily cobbled together cash grab. It is essentially a bunch of proxies, right? I mean, they're not calling them proxies, they're calling them collector's edition. But let's be very clear. Underneath, this is a stealth move on the proxy market, because Wizards of the Coast is monetizing every aspect of the game they can get in on, right? They've already hit the secondary market hard with the whole secret layer aspect. So now they're like, okay, what do we do next? We'll hit the proxy market, and also we'll scoop into the reserve list sort of premier status, but also try not to step on any toes. It's a crazy, slapped together product that to me screams that the company is frantically trying to make money, not in terms of like, hey, let's keep the game going and get it healthy. It's like, let's pull the copper wires out of the wall, let's pull up the floors and sell the wood for money. It's that kind of a like feeling, because you have the corporate individuals who need to make their quarterly earnings. And if they don't, then there's problems for their jobs. So the people who are in charge of making the decisions for Magic the Gathering, their jobs revolve around making sure there is an ever expanding flow of cash. And remember, this year they tried to extract extra cash in the forms of changing Baldur's Gate from what was clearly just a D&D set into a Commander Legends set to slap an extra price tag onto it. Took a bunch of reprints that should have been in it and put them in Double Masters, and then Double Masters came along and hoovered up all that money. I want you to think about that. Double Masters hoovers up a bunch of money, things look like they're going swimmingly for Wizards, and it's still not good enough to the point where they have to make this 30th anniversary to just grab as much money as they can. And this is a problem for me, because for the longest time, Magic had this philosophy of, we're going to continue to make good sets, and as we keep making cards, the game will naturally grow. People will come into it because it's fun. The secondary market would grow organically based on genuine demand. There will always be an element of artificial scarcity introduced into Magic. That's part of what makes the whole, hey, what are you going to get in the booster packs? Like, it's fun to open booster packs. That's part of the element that is actually essential to it. But the problem becomes when things get too greedy to the point where we're not even being given actual Magic cards. They're being, like, they could have made a bunch of bank to shore things up by making a collector's edition that was just one of every card. And they could have put it at an insane price tag. They could have put it at $5,000 and people would have snapped it up, because to buy a collector's edition set of the old version originals would cost you 25 grand. So the people who want that would snap it up. That stuff has an actual market, and Wizards would cash in a lot, but not as much as they thought they could cash in. And the problem is, when they're spending all their time trying to figure out ways to just change the marketing and maneuver us and charge the absolute maximum they can for these products, it just turns into this race to the bottom. There's no more development spent on making the game quality, and we have an additional compounding factor, friends. When it comes down to the breakdown of how the actual income is going for Wizards of the Coast, it breaks down like this. You get an increase in tabletop gaming revenue by about 5%. So there's a tiny little whoop, we're going up with tabletop gaming. But at the same time, conversely, you have a negative 25% drop in terms of digital gaming. Now, the good news is digital gaming doesn't comprise nearly as much money as the physical component does. There's this kind of commonplace thought that people have where they say, yo, if Wizards could just get everybody playing Arena, they'd make insane bank because they wouldn't have to print any cards. And that's technically true, but will never be the reality, because Arena cannot deliver the same experience just out of the gates. But on top of that, Wizards has gone and really shoved alchemy in there and driven a bunch of people away in their attempt to basically force Arena to become Hearthstone. What happened was they originally intended to be a big esports competitor, be like big tournaments. They got rid of physical, like they basically tried to go, forget physical Magic, boys. We're going digital. We're going to be the digital kings. But they didn't put in the work or effort to make it happen. They walked in with the normal arrogance of Magic the Gathering because they're the kings of card games, right? Like they're the first, the preeminent. There is a level of arrogance that exists in Wizards of the Coast, a sense of complacency as well, where anything that has to do with Magic is automatically awesome because it has to do with Magic. You could see it with the people they hired for Arena. The guy who was in charge of communicating with the customer base made it very clear that Arena cost more because it's Magic, and you need to accept that. And when it comes to hiring practices, this company goes, let's hire people who love our game because we can pay them substandard wages. And on one hand, hey, that's a great cost-cutting measure. But on the other hand, it doesn't always get you the best employees. So you have this basically this culture of insanity underlying wizards, in my opinion, where they're doing all these different things, trying to grab money in a bunch of different ways. Arena has turned into this tentacled alchemy beast where out of one side of their mouth they go, alchemy's amazing, bro. We can fix the format. We never have to ban anything. And then they turn around and go, we got to ban this Grinning Ignis uncommon because it's creating a combo. And it's like, why don't you change it? Well, if we changed it, then the combo would go away. And it's like, isn't that the point of banning? And then less than a month later, they had to ban the rares that were responsible for banning the uncommon. They don't want to admit when they're making mistakes. We have to wait forever for them to ban a card until they've sold the boxes out of the warehouse. There's so many decisions that they make that are greedy that you have to accept as part and parcel of the game. It's difficult to remove them. And ultimately, all of that is part of the normal life flow of Magic. But this new stuff that's going on, where they need to make more money, like we had a boost where tons of people were being given extra money and they're stuck at home with nothing to do. So they're buying Magic cards. And that's a boost in Wizards' bottom line, giving them more of a goose than they really earned through their own products. It's just happenstance, right? So now they have to top that with making us pay them more. And it looks like 30th anniversary is just going to catch them up. It might not even get them ahead. So what sort of insanity are we going to see? It looks like Hasbro is starting to view Wizards of the Coast, and specifically Magic the Gathering, as like another monopoly, right? And I don't mean monopoly as in they own everything. I mean Monopoly, the dude with the hat and the monocle. Basically, they make every version of Monopoly, right down to the one where they made fun of millennials and went, you're never going to own property anyways. You can buy a bike instead of a house. Like, so they're doing that kind of stuff with Magic, it feels like. And we're in for a bumpy, wild ride. And I don't want Magic to be damaged significantly, but I fear that that may occur. Now, let us move out of the storm of deep darkness that is and move into something a little lighter, and then we'll end off with something genuinely fun. So, let's talk about Mark Rosewater's statement that 75% of Magic players don't know what a planeswalker is, because most people's gut reaction to that will be like, whoa, back that up a second. I got a couple of questions. How do you get these numbers? First of all, that's one thing you got to take with a grain of salt. When it comes to Wizards of the Coast and talking about statistical breakdowns of their actual player base, they have no way of knowing what their overall player base is. They can guess, but they don't know for sure, right? Also, it's super nebulous. What's your definition of a Magic player? Does it have to be somebody who's entrenched enough in the game that they're actually online engaging with videos and stuff like that? Because I do believe that that is a much smaller population overall. If you were to say, maybe 10 to 20% of Magic players actually engage with like YouTube videos and really go onto the Reddits and stuff, I'd believe it, because we're like the super hyper fans, right? But they're extending the blanket so far that you go, wait, hold on. 75% of players don't know what planeswalkers are. And then how can you not know what planeswalkers are? The cards exist, they're powerful. How do you circumvent knowing about them, right? Well, the answer becomes, he's actually talking about something different here. He's talking about the concept of being a planeswalker. He's saying 75% of Magic players who are sitting down to play Magic don't understand that they are planeswalkers themselves, beings who can travel through the multiverse, summoning up all this. In their heads, they're just a wizard doing a wizard fight. Like, it's that level. And that's actually true. One of the things that was most difficult for me to accept about the overall Magic the Gathering player base is they don't care about flavor and lore the same way that I do. For example, the Brothers War story starts tomorrow, and I am so hyped about it. In fact, I have like 4 hours worth of lore videos on the original Brothers War. The full story from when Urza was a 10-year-old boy all the way until he ascends to being the most epic planeswalker in Magic's history. I have a deep love for this story. It's my favorite thing about Magic pretty much overall. So you have this scenario where, to me, it's incredible. But the majority of Magic players don't know or care about it. The only stories that most Magic players care about are the stories that have to do with the cards that they have in their hands right now. They don't care about what happened 30 years ago. That's perfectly understandable. You know what? Being that deep into the game, I get that I'm right down deep into it. And actually, speaking of which, let's take a look at some pictures from the Brothers War. They've got some art put out already. There's some weird ones. You got this gigantic face boat kind of thing going on. But either way, if you have not checked out the Brothers War lore, it is absolutely awesome. Best storyline in Magic the Gathering's history, starting with a simple 10-year-old child who is essentially an orphan And the basically the battle between the brothers, the falling out between them, it's so heartbreaking. As the story progresses, you want them to mend their ways. Guys, this was the era where characters were written with depth. You don't get two-dimensional planeswalkers. You get full people, and it's so much different than the current era lore. I wholeheartedly encourage you to come on over to my other channel and listen to me tell you the whole story, because tomorrow we're going back in time and changing the story, and you don't want to be the only one who doesn't know what's going on. You want to be one of the cool kids. So head on over to Fantasy Geographic. I'll see you there. In the meantime, big thank you to all my patrons. You guys rule, and I will see you all in the next video.